Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are making a cafe. So I have made a cafe on my channel before for my city series, but it was quite undetailed. So today we are going to make a very detailed one with custom stuff. I'm a huge fan of cafes because I really like to eat desserts and I find them extremely cute. So during exam season, I would often go to some local cafes and study there. And I find that it's easier to study in a different location because I often spend most of my time on my desk gaming. So by changing my environment, it kind of helps me focus a little bit more. From the book Atomic Habits. And I'm actually locking in for this school year. Started reading some productivity books and it has kind of helped. I'm gonna use these tips. But speaking of school, I had my first day of school today. I barely know anyone in my class. And I've never seen them before, which is pretty interesting because I have been at the same school for a few years already. But that's the funny thing about high school, because every semester it's going to be going to a new school over again. For this build, I went on Pinterest and I found these reference photos that had parts I really liked. I was kind of torn between making a modern cafe or more like a French architectural style, but at the end I opted out for more of a French architectural style in the interior, but the exterior looked more like the modern cafe reference. Whenever I make builds, I tend to get many different references and then take components of each one that I like to combine them into one ultimate build. I really like the windows in this cafe, so I put that part in my build. And I also really like the awning in the other picture, so I use that as well. As you can see, I started with the window, which is completely custom. So this is kind of the base of my build, which I just ended up copying, pasting. Mansions don't take as much time as some people may think. It's honestly just the exterior that is hard, because when you're done with the interior, you could just copy and paste the furniture, which is kind of what I did with this build. I also made a custom door, which turned out super nice. And as for the landscaping, I just used the in-game items to save my wallet, and because it's just simply easier. I think detailed landscaping is a little bit too much for this build, and I kind of wanted to keep it simple, but still kind of detailed as possible. So now I'm just gonna go back and talk about school. So after school, I took some photos for the yearbook stuff, and I forgot to pose well. Technically, I didn't kitchen with, I would probably say fill it up with a lot of Bloxburg food. I also love to bake in my free time. I'm not the best at it, but I like to make muffins and cookies. But only my muffins taste good. Cookies are honestly like the hardest dessert for me to make, but that's also because I use the wrong butter. I always tend to use margarine because it's the only thing I have in my house. It's really different from unsalted butter, so all my cookies never really turn out the way I want it. So it's just really important to follow the recipe, but I never do and I never learn my lesson. But I do remember making my first batch of muffins when I was 7. And they were for a school project actually, and they turned out like perfect. Like I actually followed the recipe step by step. Unlike me now, when I'm older and I don't follow any of the recipes. But I use salted butter instead of unsalted butter for those muffins because I didn't know the difference when I was little. So I had to throw them out and I was so upset because they looked so good. They were good enough to be like photographed for an advertisement. So yeah, I was really upset, but I think in another life I would open my own cafe that looks similar to this one and also become a baker. There are actually so many occupations I want to do, like being a baker, fashion designer, interior designer, architect, UI UX designer, graphic designer, and painter. Just anything with design and food I really like. But unfortunately, I can't do all of these in my lifetime. But I just really love art and I really look forward to doing it in my life. Just last week, I rode an actual bike for the first time in my life. And I know it sounds crazy because almost everyone I've known has rode a bike as a child. Technically, I have rode a bike before, but it had training wheels, so it doesn't really kind of count, which is kind of crazy because I'm pretty old. Like, I'm in high school. But I've never owned a bike before, and I wasn't really allowed to leave the house by myself when I was younger, so I never had the reason to want a bike. I just stayed home and played games as a child. I do recommend people to go outside and touch some grass. You know, reduce your screen time, of course. I was near a huge lake, and I biked around downtown with my friends last week. But since it was my first time biking without any help, it was so stressful. So like where I was, the bike lane was extremely small. So whenever people would pass by me, it would be like very close. So I would get nervous and then like lean on one side. But like the thing about, I think, riding a bike is that the second you are scared, it is over. You are tripping, you are falling. I would always get nervous and I'll always lean to the side. I had to like speed up and get fast and, you know, not be scared. I was super nervous and it was kind of dangerous because also the lane next to it was like a walking lane, and on the way back it was also next to the water because I was near the lake, and it was super fun, so I might consider doing it again and maybe more often now. Another thing I really like that can be scary are roller coasters. If you're ever feeling sad, go on a roller coaster. It solves all your problems. It's also very similar to shaving your eyebrows. It also gives you an energy rush, the adrenaline rush. Sometimes I just go on random roller coasters without seeing the preview, because if I see them, I might wimp out and get scared. But I also avoid the ones that loop and go upside down a lot, because that's a little bit too much. But the thing about roller coasters is that the second you sit on them and the ride starts, you can't get off, and you're definitely going to complete the ride. I also like skiing. I'm not that great at that either, and I went quite a few times already, but I do kind of get scared on mountains because I'm scared I'll fall off the mountain and I'll ski off of it. The first few times I had class, I kind of strayed all the way to like the ditches, and the teacher had to like walk over and like lug me out of it. My friend, she has quite a lot of skiing experience, and she said that she's scared of getting chased by bears while skiing, and apparently that does happen sometimes. I'm not sure if that's true, but it sounds pretty scary. I just love the rush that you get when you do this type of things, and I also love the wind on my face. It just gives you this like energy, like you feel so alive. If you're ever sad or upset, these are definitely the things to do. For this build, I used Advanced Placement, Transform Plus, and the color wheel. I also used some seasonal items like the bow sold during winter, as well as the heart pillow and statues sold during the Valentine's update. I also realize now that I'm obsessed with plaid. Like if you see in this video, I'm using plaid so much. And after around 6.5 hours, I finished the build, so let's go on to the tour. I'm gonna stop yapping now, so thank you so much for watching this video, and if you'd like to see more, please like, comment, and subscribe.